Good afternoon, cadets. It's Lieutenant Colonel Baker here in our first of two series on citizenship and government. Our government, our American government. I think it's apropos to start this actually for what's going on, the election. We have a presidential election this year. Matter of fact, in less than 2 weeks, a lot of the elections should be over by then. But very contentious what's going on in our country right now. So I think this series is going to help you understand some of our government. You guys have probably already had this in another class, but this is part of our curriculum. They've actually shortened it down from about 6 classes to 2. So let's start the class. And as always, we have our essential question. How do elements of our government sustain our way of life? If you think about what's going on today, I think a lot of people think that the federal government has more sway over what you do at your level. But we all found out that the governor of the state that you live in wields a lot more influence over you than the federal government or the presidency, i.e. Masks, shutting down businesses at our level and the state. That didn't happen from the president or the federal level. That happens from the state level with our governor. Some states have been locked down a lot more than others. I just read today where the state of California, the governor Newsom there is actually limiting or trying to limit people for Thanksgiving. Only 3 families can visit, no more than 11 people. You have to social distance and all of this at your own house. So that has a lot more bearing on what you do in your day-to-day living than anything does at the federal level. So let's get started. All right. So if you think about the word government, what comes to mind? Again, most people think about the federal government, the presidency, and how that affects my life. Okay, but if you really think about it, the local government has more impact on your life. Now, right now, I live in Oak Island. I have to pay taxes on sand. No other place, the state government isn't telling me I have to pay taxes on the sand, nor the federal government. It is my local government, the town of Oak Island. Anybody who lives permanently or owns a house on the island has to pay a sand tax. We also have to pay a sewer tax because the town of Oak Island went in debt $35 million before I bought a house there. So I'm paying that tax also. BSL residents don't pay that tax. Southport doesn't pay that tax. If you live in the town of Oak Island, you have to pay both of those taxes. You can't get away from it. Okay, so those are taxes that I have to pay as a homeowner. Okay, nobody else has to pay those taxes in the other towns. If you think about the schools, okay, right now we have a lot of changes going on with bottled water that we're distributing here. A lot of new things that have been purchased. Who do you think pays for those? It's not the federal or the state government. That's the county government that pays for it, and we pay county taxes also. Anybody who lives in Brunswick County has to pay county taxes. So there you have it. There's another tax at the local level that gets thrown on you. Can you see the difference here? Yes, there's federal tax and there's state tax. You can see that taken out if you work. Now, if you're under 18, though, you can file your taxes and get 100% of the taxes that they took out at the federal and state level back. So please file your taxes. Don't forget about it if you're working, so you can get that money back to you. Now, if you're 18 or over, unfortunately, you don't get that money back. They tax you for FICA, okay, which is Medicare, okay, and Social Security taxes. So everybody has to pay that. When they talk about, free health care for everyone, well, it's not free. Somebody's got to pay for it. Just like free college for everyone. Somebody's got to pay for it. to be the folks like you and me that are paying taxes. So nothing is ever free when a politician says that. So you got to remember that. Somebody's always got to pay for it. Okay? That's what I think of the word government. Okay? And some government is good in my mind, but some is overreaching. Just like that sand tax, I think, is overreaching. Okay? So when you think about how our national government affects your everyday life, now national government, we're talking about federal government. Okay? When you go pump a gallon of gas, you're paying taxes on that, federal and state taxes. So if you go to other states and you notice that their gas prices are a lot higher or a lot lower, that's because they either have a lot more taxes at the state level, because the federal tax is the same across the board, right? Or they have a lot less state tax on that gallon of gas. Go to South Carolina, they always had the cheapest gas ever. Okay, so they have a lot lower state taxes. Okay, some states do not have a income tax. Florida, South Dakota. And then you think, well, if they don't get the state income tax, how are they surviving? Okay. Well, you know, they tax other things to make up for that. But if you live there, you get a lot of your money back. So that's why a lot of people actually move to Florida. It's because of the taxes. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't want to live. I lived in Wisconsin. They taxed me when I left Wisconsin in 2004. My property tax for a house of 1,000 square feet was almost $5,000 a year. I moved down to Alabama in 2004. I got stationed down there. I had a house twice the size of the one in Wisconsin, and I paid $795 a year in property taxes. What a big difference. And were things worse because I paid less property tax? Not at all. Okay? They were actually the same. They're actually better because I didn't have to deal with the snow up there in Wisconsin. Okay? But that's how, you know, governments affect you on your everyday. Now, national government, like I said, they have a tax on your gas. You have to pay Medicare and Medicaid tax. You have to pay Social Security tax. Okay, so taxes are a big deal at every level, unfortunately. If you look throughout the history and you see when they actually came out with the income tax, because this country did not have this income tax when it was founded. Matter of fact, it was founded early in the early 20th century is when they came out with that income tax. Okay. Well, what else does the federal government affect you at your level? So you got to think about that. Regulations. Okay? The Environmental Protection Agency was put there to help make our country not as, you know, susceptible to pollution and things like that. They're there right now in our county and also in New Hanover County. We're dealing with Gen X. If you don't know what Gen X is, you need to look it up. It's a chemical that they put in our river, the Cape Fear River Basin, up there outside of Fayetteville. Started off with DuPont, and now it's Chemours. Okay, so they're dumping this stuff, chlorofluorocarbons, into our water. What are we drinking? Well, we're drinking that water because in Brunswick County and where we live, we get our water from the Cape Fear River Basin. Okay. Now the Environmental Protection Agency, it needs to handle that and take care of that, because who knows what that chemical is doing to people. Okay. So what else can you think of that affects your everyday life? Roads. That's a big one. Okay. The interstate system. That's a federal highway system that they provide money and upkeep on that. Okay, so only on the interstates though, not the county highway system. Okay, that's at the state level. Okay? Now you can see the difference, but The census and this sign right here. Okay. Matter of fact, the census came out this year. The census started a long, long time ago, actually in ancient times, if you look up when the Romans did the census, because they wanted to see how many people were there and how much they could apply taxes to them. Okay. All right, so here we have the U.S. Constitution is not designed to be changed. That's right, that's false. Why do you think we have amendments? Okay. All right, so here we have some of our learning objectives. Okay, we do need a government, don't get me wrong. Okay, without it, it would be chaos and anarchy. Okay? We need to identify the principles of our American democracy and the difference between a true democracy and what we have, which is a representative republic. Right? Then, of course, we have three branches in our government: the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The judicial branch is in the news right now because right now there's only 8 Supreme Court justices, and usually there's 9. Why are there only 8? Because Ruth Bader Ginsburg died last month, and there is a candidate that's put forth by the President Trump, and she is going through the approval process right now because the Senate is the one that confirms judicial appointees at the Supreme Court level. Okay, so you need to pay attention to what's going on there because you need 9 to have a majority, right? It can be split 4-4, and then nothing gets done at that level. There's no decision made by the Supreme Court because they're both, it's even 4-4. Okay. Also, we're going to describe the different ways the Constitution is interpreted. Okay. The Democrats view the Constitution differently than the Republicans, and how they institute or imply what the Constitution says in there. Okay. All right, so we actually kind of went over that. Can't divide into teams, obviously, if I'm talking to you and giving you this lesson online. Okay. All right, so think about why we need government. Why do you think we need government? That's a good question. Okay. So get your student text out, and you need to read the need for government and the levels of government section. Okay. Which I will do right now. Some of the words I'm going to define for you is government. It's the people and a system for exercising authority over a community. The Constitution, a document that describes the nature, functions, and limits of our government or other institution. Okay, so the need for government. Government is the people and system for exercising authority over a community. Any organization that has power to make or enforce laws and decisions for its members acts as a government. People have formed governments for thousands of years. The ancient civilizations of Egypt, Rome, China, and Babylon all had governments. More recently, in the 1600s, the English political thinker Thomas Hobbes noted that life without government would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Hobbes claimed that human beings naturally compete for territory, resources, and power. If each of us could do whatever we wanted, fighting would be common and survival would depend on strength and cunning. Think about trying to play basketball with no rules or referees. How would players know what to do and what not to do? How would you decide who wins? The game would probably be a chaotic free-for-all. Similarly, if there were no government to make and enforce laws, we would live in a state of confusion, violence, and fear. We would also struggle to meet our needs entirely on our own government. Government can help people live together peacefully and productively. Governments help keep order, settle conflicts, and protect the community. They provide services that individuals could not supply independently. They also guide the community and plan for its future by setting policies, making budgets, and interacting with other communities. So let's examine each of these important functions. So we have security and public safety. Okay, conflicts are unavoidable when people live together in a community. Citizens may disagree on all sorts of matters: their choice of leaders, the best way to raise or spend money, the rightful owner of a certain property, and so on. Governments make laws to help prevent conflicts and to settle the conflicts that arise. Governments have the power to enforce the laws. For example, to make sure that drivers obey traffic regulations, police officers are empowered to ticket or arrest violators. When someone is accused of a serious crime like stealing, who is to say that the person is actually guilty? We have courts with systems for trials with judges and juries who decide whether those accused of crimes are guilty and what their punishment should be. In addition to law and order come concerns about community security, defending citizens and their land from enemies. The armed forces exist to protect our nation and other nations we are partners with around the world. They provide public services. Governments provide many services that would not be available without cooperation and coordination. Governments create and manage libraries, schools, hospitals, parks, and recreation centers. They develop mass transit systems like subways and city buses and supply water to our homes and businesses. Government workers build and repair streets and bridges, collect garbage, and deliver mail. The goal of many government services is to keep the public healthy and safe. Local communities set up fire departments and ambulance services, for example. State governments test drivers before issuing licenses, and doctors must show their state they are properly trained before receiving a license to practice medicine. Our government agencies protect us from dangerous drugs or spoiled food. Guiding the community. Another function of government is to develop public policy. Public policy is a course of government action to achieve community goals. For example, when government leaders decide they want to protect consumers from unsafe medicine or strengthen national security, they are setting public policy goals. When they pass laws or develop guidelines to reach these goals, they are making public policy. Most public policy decisions involve some financial planning as well. Governments have limited amounts of money and they must use it wisely. Creating a budget is key to the success of the community. A budget is a plan for collecting and spending money, tax dollars. Okay? The levels of government. When you hear the phrase the government, what do you think of? People usually mean the national government. However, there are 3 different government levels in the United States, and each level exercises authority over a different group of people. And I discussed that earlier in the video about how at different levels, different things happen to you, okay? The highest and broadest level in the United States is the national government, also called the federal government. Okay. The level of government that makes and enforces laws for the entire country is the federal government. It's centered in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The federal government makes and enforces laws for the entire country. It also collects taxes and spends some of that money to states, for example, to build interstate highways. I discussed that. Secondly, each of our 50 states has its own state government as well, which makes laws for the people in that state. I discussed that during the pandemic and all the shutdowns of restaurants and the limited businesses that couldn't operate. That was put forth by the state governor, Governor Cooper. Sometimes state and federal laws on the same issue are different. For instance, at the time of publication, several states have made marijuana use legal for adults for medical purposes, but using it is still against laws of the federal government. A person might not get in trouble for using the drug in his or her own state, but a federal law enforcement agent from the Department of Drug and Alcohol, or DEA, or the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, could still arrest a person. State laws can affect a variety of everyday functions, such as maintaining roads, qualifying certain professionals to do business in the state, and making rules about voting or managing state lands, and so on. Okay, now the third level of government is the local government. And I was discussing the town of Oak Island in my local government. Okay, local governments include counties, cities, and towns. The people who lead and serve your various local governments probably live and work fairly close to you. For example, your city or town is located in a county, which is an area that includes many cities and towns, but is smaller than a state. Your county may have a leader, such as a county executive or a mayor, and a county board with representatives for your part of the county. If you live in a city, you probably have a mayor and representatives who serve on a city council. Local governments are in charge of schools, some street maintenance, garbage collections, recycling, parks, pools, golf courses, and much more. All right, so throughout history, all important civilizations have had some type of government. True or false? All right, that's true. Yeah. That's why I love studying history, especially ancient history, because a lot of our values come from way back then. All right. So which of the following is not a function of government? All right, choosing your career path, that's up to you, okay? Delivering mail, pretty self-explanatory. So you have the Postal Service, keeping citizens safe, police force, the military, and then relations with other countries, okay? That's at the federal level. Which level of government enforces laws? That's right, at all three levels, federal, state, and local. All right, so think about the different levels of government and their functions. We actually went over that. All right, so here we have exercise 1. I need you to fill this one out. Okay, I will post it there for you to do it at the same time I post the stuff on the Google Classroom, okay? So you fill this out and send that in to me. All right, so which level of government do you notice most in your daily life? I want you guys to think about it. I told you which one affects me the most, and that's my city, based upon all the extra taxes that we get, okay? And do you agree with Thomas Hobbes' statement about life without government would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short? Okay, give you an explanation. Okay, So think about what makes our American government unique. All right, so we have a democratic government. All citizens share in governing and being governed. Okay? So a direct democracy is a governmental system in which all the citizens meet to debate government matters and vote. That's what you think about when you talk about a democracy in ancient Greece. Okay, they had city states where every citizen had a matter in what the city would do. Okay. So here we have it, ancient Greece. I just talked about that. Okay, so everybody had a role in it. Now, here's what we have. We have a representative democracy. It's where citizens choose a smaller group to represent them. So we have senators from our state that we elect. Right now, it's one Senate seat's going up. There's two per state, but only one right now is going up for election, and that's between Cal Cunningham and Tom Tillis. Right? We elect those people. They go to Washington, D.C., and they make federal laws for us. Same way there's a lot of state representatives that are up for re-election or election right now, and at the state capitol in Raleigh. They're going to make laws, state laws, that are going to affect us. Okay? And they govern on our behalf. All right, so here's actually the principles of our American democracy. Okay, I believe this is Latin, which is a language no longer spoke, okay? But we have the rule of law, okay? Okay, so rule of law. All people, including those who govern, are bound by the law. Everyone, the president, generals, police officers, rich and poor alike, we all must follow the same laws. Right? Limited government. This is what our founders, and by the way, that voice of democracy was a really good topic for you guys. Right? So limited government is not all powerful. It may do only those things that people have given it the power to do. In dictatorships, the top leader is all powerful and create laws and rules without considering the opinions of citizens. So if you look in North Korea with the dictator and Kim Jong-un, okay, he's it. He's the man. Whatever he says goes. Okay, so consent of the governed. American citizens are the source of all governmental power. Sometimes I think that politicians forget this, okay? But we, the people, are the ones that elect them, okay? Now you need to remember that, okay? A government has legitimacy. It is justified using its power because the citizens have indirectly given power to them, to the government, by voting them into office. You see how it works. If we don't like what they're doing, we vote them out of office. Now, I do think that there should be term limits on congressmen and senators. And then also, I don't think they should get a salary of $174,000 the rest of their life. I just don't think that's fair. Okay? But that's my opinion. You know, you guys can look into it and research it and develop your own opinion. Okay? Individual rights. Okay? In the American democracy, individual rights are protected by government. For example, no one can take away your right to practice the religion of your choice. Now, during the pandemic, if you read what has been going on, some governors have banned any meetings in the churches. Okay? Does that go against their individual rights to practice their religion? Think about that. Okay? That's scary. If you pull up our Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, and compare them to what has been going on by some of the governors and some of the restrictions they put in play, were they taking away some of our individual rights? I want you to, consider that. And so representative government, We, the people, elect government leaders to make the laws and govern on their behalf. It may not always seem that ordinary people have power over government, okay? But we do. We cannot forget that, guys, okay? Ordinary people in our democracy have the power to vote. Always vote, 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 vote. When you turn 18, register to vote. Please vote. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, whatever. Exercise your right to vote. Okay, that is your right. That's a right that a lot of people in other countries don't have. Okay. You know, ordinary people can vote for or against leaders, and if enough of them vote the same way, they'll win. That is the way we change things. Right? All right, so here's a quote by Abraham Lincoln. Some of you guys might know, remember this. It says, government of the people, by the people, for the people. Okay? It's a great quote. And sometimes I think people forget that when we elect him into office, okay? Of the people. It says people who lead and work in the government come from among the citizens themselves. Okay? They come from you and I. Like right now, I could run for the mayor of the town of Oak Island. Not that I want to, because I've seen what's going on, but I could. And when you turn 18, and if you're a natural born citizen, you can run for whatever government levels that you want. Okay? That's up to you. Okay. It always, of the people, don't forget that. Okay. The president, state governors, and mayors of small towns and heads of school boards are all regular citizens. Okay? In America, a person doesn't have to be born into a certain family or a family of a certain race or social status to qualify for a role in the government if you desire. Okay. So by the people, American citizens acting through their representatives give the government its authority. Okay, so we agree to abide by the laws those leaders that we appoint make. And if we disagree, we have a specific process for trying to get enough others to agree with us to make the change. That's where you see some petitions that get floated around. If I know there was a big petition that was signed to send Governor Cooper to rescind some of his restrictions that he put in place. Okay, right now, you're seeing it by our schools. We have the A and B schedule, okay? And we have to have limited people in the classroom, and they have to be 6 feet apart. We have to wear masks, all of those things. That comes from the state government, okay? And then for the people, okay? The purpose of the government is to serve us, okay? Not rule over us, but to serve us, okay? I mean, it might seem obvious, but for some people it is not. Too many leaders around the world and throughout history have used their authority to serve or enhance their own personal goals, to get rich, to hold power over others, or to change laws that personally benefited themselves. And we've seen that. Okay? If you like history, since that was my undergraduate degree, you study what happened in Chicago and how it was founded. And all the corruption in that government, okay? Tammany Hall up in New York City. I mean, it's just history is littered throughout with people that want to enrich themselves by gaining power. Okay? That's why it says absolute power corrupts all. Okay? So what does the majority rule mean? So what do you think the majority rule means? Okay? So if right now, depending on who wins, who gets the most votes, that's the majority, then that person is going to be put into whatever office that they're running for. Okay. So how can a nation respect the rights of the minority? Okay. So we always want to make sure that nobody is left out. Okay. That is a big deal, especially in our society, okay? And there have been some cases in our history that, if you look back at on today's viewpoint, it is wrong, okay? You know, respect for minority rights is difficult, especially if society is under a great deal of stress. So, for example, in 1942, the United States government imprisoned more than 100,000 Japanese Americans in relocation camps, okay? Because we were at war with Japan. They attacked Pearl Harbor. Government leaders feared that these Japanese Americans would be disloyal. This relocation program caused severe hardships for many Japanese Americans and deprived them of basic liberties. Decades later, in 1988, Congress admitted the grave injustice of the relocation camps and offered payments of $20,000 to those Japanese Americans still living that had been relocated. Okay, so the federal government realized the error of our ways. Okay. All right. So what happened after 2001, 9/11? So it was caused by people that were, from the Muslim faith. And so what happened in the United States? There was a lot of anger and discrimination that went against people that were under the Muslim religion. Okay? So President Bush made a speech that claimed that Islam is a peaceful religion and urged Americans to treat Muslim Americans fairly. You know, we're all Americans, right? We all follow the Constitution. We're all under the same laws and rights. So there's no reason why they should be discriminated. Okay? And going back further in our history, obviously the African American citizens, they were denied many basic rights. Okay. And it took many demonstrations and finally an action by the federal government and the courts to correct all this in the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Okay. Now you're seeing something that's going on in our society right now with a lot of movement of defund the police and Black Lives Matter and all of that that's going on. So we still have issues today in our country. Okay. How many people have actually read the U.S. Constitution? Not many people. Okay. But these guys were fantastic in what they came up with. Okay. It was the basis of our democracy. It created a representative legislature. Okay, the office of the president, a system of courts, a process to modify the Constitution when and if the people saw the need for change in how the government carried out its responsibilities. It created the Electoral College, which there's a lot of people that say they want to get rid of the Electoral College, which if you did that, the smaller states like where I come from, Nebraska, okay, and if it was a going by the popular vote instead of the Electoral College, then the state of California, New York, Florida, and Texas, because they have the most people that live in those states, would elect the president of the United States. Okay? Does that seem fair? No, it doesn't. Okay? When you come from smaller states with a smaller population, okay, it needs to be even. All right, so let's play the Constitution game. Okay, yay or nay? Is it in the Constitution? People who purchase guns must undergo criminal background checks. Yay or nay? That's right, nay, right? That wasn't in the Constitution. Gay people have the right to get married. That's right, nay. The Constitution can be amended. You better get this one right. That's right, yay. They put it in. The founders of the Constitution realized that things would be changing from when they created the Constitution. So they put in a method to change it, amend it. Okay? All states must respect the laws of other states. That's right. That's yay. Okay? If you have a conceal and carry permit, there are certain states that, and I got mine in North Carolina, but there are other states like the state of Illinois that doesn't recognize that. I have to respect that, okay, and follow their laws when I'm in their state. All citizens have the right to privacy. I bet you guys thought that was in the Constitution, but that's a nay. The U.S. military cannot occupy a citizen's home. Okay, remember what happened? The British government, the king, forced people to house British soldiers, the colonists, and that really riled people up. All passengers traveling in the U.S. must undergo airport searches. They didn't even have airports back then, but that's a nay. The U.S. can detain non-citizens indefinitely without a trial. That's not in the Constitution either. Yeah, hopefully some of these are unfamiliar with you. Okay? U.S. citizens have the right to a fair and speedy trial. Okay? That is in the Constitution. Okay? One purpose of government is to help people live healthy, happy, and prosperous lives. Okay? That is in the Constitution. See, I want you guys. We have some copies of the Constitution, but you can pull it up online. I want you to read this document that founded our country. Right? A lot of people talk about it, but they've never read it. Right? So, the first known democracy in ancient Greece is an example of, that's right, a direct democracy where every citizen has a say. Okay? So when people start slinging around, oh, we're a democracy, remember, guys, we are not the democracy that they're talking about. Okay, we're a representative democracy or a representative republic where we appoint people to go to the Washington, D.C. and make laws we give them that power to do it in our stead. Okay, so true or false? Under the rule of law, the president and Congress do not have to follow the law if our nation is threatened. It's false. Some of you probably thought that one was true. That's why I laughed. Okay. The preamble of the Constitution. Okay. That explains the general purpose of our government. All right, so think about how we rely on the Constitution for things that affect our daily lives. Okay, we can't do that. But is there something in the Constitution that you would like to change? Okay. I would actually like to see some of your examples and send them to me. Okay, because look, the founders created and wrote the Constitution over 250 years ago. Things have changed a lot since then. Okay? So, but is there something in the Constitution that you would like to change? Okay? And there's 27 amendments to the Constitution. Should there be more? What are your thoughts on that? Okay, let's think about the importance of our Constitution. All right. So now we have the performance assessment task for this. You see the part that I have highlighted. Okay, identify the part of the Constitution you are changing, and then describe how it might affect different aspects of the American life. Okay, I need you to do this performance assessment task, do those two things, and then submit it to me. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.